I always knew I was the odd one out in my family. My sisters were the beautiful ones, effortlessly charming, always surrounded by admirers, the kind of girls who stole the spotlight just by existing. I was the quiet shadow trailing behind them, a little too round, a little too reserved, constantly buried in books instead of social scenes. They used to scoff at my dreams, waving them off with condescending smirks, urging me to be realistic. So when I got engaged, I expected the USUAL teasing, but nothing could have prepared me for the cruelty they unleashed on the most important day of my life. Ethan and I had chosen a small, intimate wedding. He had been away on business until the very morning of the ceremony, but he swore he'd make it in time. It would take a private jet and a bit of faith, but I knew him. He never broke his word. Ethan wasn't the kind of man who flaunted his wealth. Despite being extraordinarily successful, he dressed in simple clothes, drove an unremarkable car, and rarely spoke about money. My family had never taken the time to truly know him, and truthfully, I'd kept him at a distance from them on purpose. I knew what they were like. When I first told them about Ethan, they reacted with barely veiled disbelief. Carla, my eldest sister, actually laughed. "So, you found someone desperate?" she sneered. My mother, ever the ice queen, tilted her head and asked, "Does he even know what he's getting into?" And my father, expression unreadable, merely grunted, "As long as he can afford to take care of you, I guess." Those words carved invisible wounds into me, but I swallowed them down. I always had. The morning of the wedding, I received a message from Ethan. His flight was delayed. My heart clenched, but I nodded and relayed the news to my bridesmaids, who were my cousins and sisters. They exchanged smug glances and couldn't hide their delight. "He's probably running," Carla said with a mock sympathetic shrug. "Honestly, if I were him, I'd do the same," another cousin added with a snicker. Their words cut through me like glass. As I stepped into my gown, behind the dressing curtain, I heard my aunts whispering in hushed tones. "Poor girl," one murmured. "You know this won't last. She always wanted a fairy tale," the other replied. "She's no princess." I blinked back tears, refusing to let them see me break. I had dreamed of this day since I was a child, imagined every tender moment with such vivid hope. But now, instead of magic, I felt only dread. Still, I squared my shoulders, lifted my chin, and walked down the aisle with as much grace as I could gather. The seats were full, eyes turning toward me, waiting not for a bride, but for a groom who wasn't there. An awkward tension filled the room like fog. Whispers stirred, feet shuffled. The officiant leaned toward me gently and asked what I wanted to do. I couldn't speak. I stood frozen, paralyzed with shame and uncertainty. My mother suddenly stood up and said loudly, "Well, she always did like attention." A few people laughed loud, cruel laughter that bounced off the walls. My sisters were wiping tears of amusement from their eyes. "Told you it was too good to be true," Carla called out smugly. I wanted the floor to split open and swallow me whole. But just as I was about to turn and retreat down the aisle alone, a rich, steady voice cut through the commotion. "Sorry I'm late," he said, and all heads whipped around. "Had to land the jet myself." Gasps echoed through the chapel like thunder. Ethan strode in, composed and magnetic, wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit and holding a bouquet of fresh white lilies. Behind him were his best man and 3 sharply dressed groomsmen, moving with quiet confidence. Silence fell over the room like a curtain. Every mocking voice faded, every smirk vanished. He walked straight to me, eyes locked on mine, and gently kissed my forehead. "You look breathtaking," he whispered. Then he turned to the crowd. "Sorry for the delay. Let's not waste another second." The ceremony proceeded. This time, no one dared speak out of turn. I could see the transformation unfolding on my family's faces, shock rippling into awe, and all bleeding into envy. My mother's lips parted in stunned disbelief. Carla, pale now, stared at Ethan, as if trying to place the version of him she'd mocked with the man standing before her. My father shifted uncomfortably in his seat when the vows were exchanged and the applause began. Ethan leaned close and whispered, "I heard what they were saying. Don't worry. I've got something planned for the reception." I didn't ask what. I just smiled, letting the warmth of his words settle over me like a protective blanket. The reception took place at a breathtaking private estate Ethan had rented just for the night. Elegant limousines picked up every guest. As they arrived, they were welcomed by waiters in tuxedos. A live orchestra filling the garden with sweeping melodies, a towering 7-tier cake, and a champagne fountain that sparkled beneath the golden chandeliers. My family stood slack-jawed at the opulence around them, but the true shock came moments later. Ethan took the microphone. His voice rang out calm and clear. Before we begin the celebration, he said, "I want to thank my wife for being the most beautiful, kind, and resilient woman I've ever known. And I want her family to know, yes, I am the CEO of Wind Technologies. Yes, your daughter is now not just my wife but my partner in everything. If you had treated her with the love and respect she deserves, perhaps you would have known that already." The room erupted in gasps. A few people clapped hesitantly. My mother looked like she was on the verge of fainting. Carla wordlessly downed an entire glass of wine. Ethan continued, "She didn't want a grand wedding because she didn't want to show off. But now that I've seen how you treat her, I've decided I'll show off for both of us." With a snap of his fingers, the lights dimmed and fireworks burst across the night sky outside. A string quartet began to play my favorite song as servers unveiled a gourmet dinner crafted by a Michelin-starred chef. Every guest table had handwritten name cards and elegant gift boxes containing thank you presents. Worth more than most of their monthly paychecks, the atmosphere shimmered with elegance, indulgence, and quiet retribution. Suddenly, my relatives couldn't stop being kind to me. A cousin gushed over my dress. My mother attempted a hug. Carla, with forced charm, remarked, "So Ethan's really sweet. You're lucky." But I wasn't interested in their hollow attempts at redemption. I stayed by Ethan's side, holding his hand, laughing freely, basking in the beauty of a night we had built together. Later, Ethan took me aside and handed me a small velvet box. Inside was a delicate locket engraved with our wedding date. "They'll always remember today," he said gently, but not for the reasons they thought. I threw my arms around him, clutching him tightly. "Thank you," I whispered, tears finally falling this time from joy. He smiled down at me. "No, thank you," for surviving all their cruelty and still choosing love. As the night came to a close and guests slowly trickled out, my family looked stunned, utterly silenced by the evening's events. They didn't say sorry. Not a single apology passed their lips, but I didn't need one. I had already won. That night, I married a man who saw me completely, who chose me wholly. And together we silenced a lifetime of mockery, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with love, loyalty, and the quiet dignity of rising above it all. Now, when people ask me about my wedding, I smile and say it was unforgettable. And it was, because the girl they believed would never be enough became the woman they couldn't stop talking about. And the best part, I didn't have to raise my voice. My husband's presence said everything.